Hey everybody, Steve here. Welcome to video 7 in my Race Day Quads Bardwell F7 quad build. Yes, you heard that correctly. This is video 7. There are 6 videos, actually 6.1 videos that precede this one. I'll go ahead and throw up a quick list of the playlist here so that we don't have to talk about them individually. You can just check out the playlist, and don't forget that the link to the playlist is located in the description below. In this video, we're going to talk switches. We're going to set switches up in OpenTX, and we're going to take that switch functionality all the way through and make sure that everything's working in Betaflight. And we are really going to get into the nuts and bolts about inputs, mixes, and then we're going to talk about outputs as well. And then, of course, in Betaflight, we're going to wrap that stuff up on the receiver tab and the modes tab. So if you need brushing up on any of those elements, we're going to wrap all of those up into a nice big present and put a big bow on it. Put it under the tree. Got a little end of the year theme going on here. All right, we are going to basically add a switch for arming. We're going to add a switch for flight modes, and we're going to add a switch to get the beeper to beep. In the event that we lose the quad and we want some sort of audio signal. So there's 2 ways we can do this. We can do it in the radio. And if y'all remember, you can go to model, and then we're going to go inputs. We can add 3 new inputs here, and we can specify how those inputs are mapped to channels on the receiver on this mixes screen. And we can do all our data entry here, but I'm going to be honest with you. That is kind of a pain in the butt. So what I like to do is use this as a springboard to kind of teach you a little bit about OpenTX if you're not familiar with OpenTX. So yes, the bottom line is we can do everything that we need to do right here in the radio without me having to go to the computer or anything like that. But let's not do it that way. All right. What I want to do is, I think at this point, we're going to cut over to the computer. Okay, so the way we're going to shortcut all of this data entry on the radio is by using OpenTX Companion. And if you're not familiar with OpenTX Companion, you can get it at open-tx.org. And the best news of all is that if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I actually have a 20+ video series on using OpenTX. So I will include a link to that playlist for you in the description below. And if that sounds overwhelming, well, then I'll just give you a place to start. And I'll include a link to this video right here, which is my OpenTX update to 2.3.10, which was just a month, or actually about 2 months ago. So this is a great place to start. Then, of course, you'll have the playlist. And ultimately where you're going to want to be is here with OpenTX Companion installed on your machine. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take T1 and T4 and push them together and then turn on the power so that I get this screen right here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this guy up like so and plug in the USB-C in the top. And you'll get a couple of screens that will pop up on the computer. We don't need either one of these. Don't need that one. Don't need that one. All right, with the radio plugged into the computer via the USB, I'm going to go into OpenTX Companion, and I'm going to go to Read Write, and I'm going to read the models and settings from the radio. And here is all of the models that I have on this radio, including the TESR, which is the misspelling of text from 5 videos ago. Go ahead and give it a more appropriate name. And now essentially it's just a matter of doing the data entry. So we're going to focus mainly on inputs and mixes. Inputs is essentially defining how we interact with the radio. These 4 are pretty much predefined, but from this point forward, we get to select which switch we use for what. Okay, so this inputs is how we interact with the radio. Mixes basically takes those inputs and it maps the inputs, okay, to channels on our receiver. And then we'll further define that by drilling down all the way to the switch position. And we'll get back to that in a second, but let's go ahead and define our inputs. We want 3 more inputs. we get to pick which ones they are. So for input 5, so I'm just going to click here, and my input name, I'm going to call it ARM, and for the source, I have decided that I want to use my 2-position SF switch. So I'm going to come down here and select SF and select OK. So this is basically us selecting the input. All right, so let's take this one step further and we'll go straight to mixes at this point, and we'll stick with the SF ARM. All right, so let's go to mixes, and for channel 5, I'm going to further define this. And the way I'm going to further define it is I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to say, I want to define what ARM is. So I'm going to say AR. First of all, we're going to call this armed, and our source is going to be input 5, our ARM switch, like so. All right, so I've called it something called armed, and I've selected my source, which is input 5. And what I want to do is it's going to be armed when that SF switch is in the down position, okay? So now it's armed. So what I want to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to copy this, and then I'm just going to paste it. Or I can say duplicate, that's even better. And I'm still within channel 5. It's still using input 5. But what I want to do is instead of SF down, I want to use SF up. And this is going to be disarmed. Or disarm, we're going to call it disarm. And there it is. There's our 2-position switch. So in inputs, we define the input. We said, okay, we want to interact with the radio using switch SF on input 5. And then for the mixes, we further defined input 5. We defined the 2 positions on the switch. As SF down is going to be armed, SF up is going to be disarmed, but we took it one further than that. We also, for the purposes of Betaflight, we told it that this is going to come in on channel 5. Now, if that didn't sink in right away, just hang on. We'll do another one. Let's go ahead to input 6. Input 6, I want that to be my flight mode. I like my flight mode switch to be my SD right here. My SD switch, which is a 3-position switch. Okay, so source, I'm going to select SD, like so, and I'm done. I have now defined that I want to use SD for something called F mode. Now let's go to mixes and further define that. On mixes, I'm going to go to 6, and I've got 3 flight modes. I've got angle. Angle's going to come in on I6, and angle is going to be SD is in the up position, like so. All right, now I can copy this 2 more times. So let's duplicate it once, let's duplicate it twice, and flight mode on I6 when it's in the middle position. I want it to be horizon, and that's going to be when SD is in the middle position, like so. And then the third one, I'm going to edit, and that is going to be acro. And acro is going to be when flight mode is in the SD down position, like so. Boom. All right. So we've just defined a 3-position switch. Now let's go back to inputs. All right, so we're going to go back to inputs, and this is where I want my buzzer to be. So I7, I'm going to call it buzzer. Now for the buzzer, my battery ran out on my camera, so you can't see me flicking the SH switch, but I use that toggle switch SH. All right, so this is going to be SH. I'm going to say OK. Now I've got that, and then I'm going to go back to mixes, and on channel 7, call it my buzz, and that's going to be input buzz, and it's going to buzz when the SH is in the down position, because the default is the up position. So I actually only need to do 1 for this one because that's the toggle switch. And those are my 3 switches. All right, so we've done a lot of hard work here, and if you've noticed, it's calling it document 4. It's also calling this document 4. So let's go ahead and give it a better name. Let's go ahead and save. I'm going to save it as December 2020. All right, and because I've done all this hard work, I'm going to go rewrite, and I'm going to go ahead and write the models and settings to the radio. Now, and what I want you to do is I want you to pay close attention down here in the bottom corner. If I go read write and I say write models and settings to radio, it says models and settings written. So all that stuff is actually on the radio now. All right, so if you want to see what that looks like on the radio, we can go into the simulator. And what we're going to do is we're going to long press on model to get in the model submenu. And then we can page over to where we get inputs. There's our inputs that we just added. And here are our mixes. We can actually go down to one of the mixes. Let's go to 6 and hold. We can edit, and you can see what it looks like there as well. All right, so I sped through this really quick. It's not my intention to teach you how to do this right here. I just wanted you to show you that it is available. This is something that I cover in my OpenTX series. I just wanted to show you that it's possible. I'm going to pull up the simulator here.
Armed. Angle mode.
Kind of just show you how this works. This is my arm disarmed switch right here. So when I flick the switch.
Armed.
And.
Disarmed.
And this is my buzzer.
Buzzer. Buzzer.
And SD is where I decided to put my
horizon mode, acro mode, horizon mode, angle mode.
It's just a really good idea to have those audio cues available to you, especially if you're a beginner, because they're very, very helpful. So what we want to do is we want to pass all of this information now onto our radio. And the way we're going to do that is I'm going to come up to read write, and I'm going to go ahead and write models and settings to the radio. And if you look down in the corner, it says that the model's stuff was written, and we're good to go. Okay, so our last step is to take this information into Betaflight and make it make sense to Betaflight. So let's try at a very high level to chase this daisy-chained link of information from one step to the next. Step number 1 is we need a way to communicate with the radio. And the way we communicate with the radio is through inputs. Our fingers either move sticks or flip switches. And those are the inputs. We define the inputs ourselves based on which switches we want to use. Those are inputs, all right? The radio now has to communicate with the receiver on the quad. And the way the radio communicates with the receiver on the quad is through mixes. Mixes take the inputs and map them to the channels on the receiver. The receiver speaks in a language of channels. So the mixes basically defines those channels for us. And it takes it one step further because it further defines the switches all the way down to their switch positions for the purposes of the receiver. Now the receiver knows what to do with it. Well, now it's the receiver's job to communicate with the flight controller. Our flight controller software is Betaflight. So what we need to do now is we need to map this channel information to the aux channels in Betaflight so that they know what we're trying to accomplish. This all comes back to our fingertips and our inputs. So let's go into Betaflight and take these mixes one step further. All right, so I've got the quad plugged in via USB, and I've got Betaflight back open, and I'm sure you all probably remember that if I move the roll stick, you can see it on the receiver tab, and here's pitch, and likewise here's throttle, and then yaw. Okay, throttle. Yeah, so those were the 4 initial channels that we had set up. But check this out, we've added some channels, and we added channel 5, and that was this one right here. So if I flip this switch right here, channel 5 comes in on aux 1. Channel 6 comes in on aux 2. And the next one comes in on aux 3. All right. So now what we need to do is we need to further define these 3 switches that we've just worked so hard on to get it talking to Betaflight. That's the next level of communication in our information chain that we were talking about earlier. So let me go over to the screen where we set all that up, which is modes, and check this out. First thing we're going to do, and there are a whole bunch of predefined ones here for us. And that's pretty cool because the 3 that we're going to use are some of the predefined ones. So what I'm going to do is for arm, I'm going to come and I'm going to say add a range. And this is set to auto, but all I really need to do is flip the switch and it will automatically come in on the channel that it needs to come in on, which is it's going to be aux1. And there it is. All right. So now watch this little cursor jump from here to way over here. Right now, we're highlighting a section that's not even part of the equation. Let's move this over. And now let me throw the switch. Now armed is actually in the highlighted area. Okay, but you're saying it's not doing anything, and that's correct because we have to save. All right. Now that I've saved, when I throw it in armed, check it out. It's in this highlighted area, and it's armed for real. Okay. Let's do the next switch, which was our flight mode switch, which is going to come in on aux2. Well, our flight mode, we want to set a range for angle and we want to set a range for horizon. And you might be thinking to yourself, there's no acro, and that's because acro happens to be the default. So I know for a fact that angle is going to come in right here, horizon is going to come in the middle, and acro is going to come in over here. So let's flip the switches and see what happens. It's in horizon mode. Now, see how both cursors switched over? Let's move this again, and again, and again. Have to save. All right, now that we've saved, you see that angle mode is highlighted. Flip the switch. And all right, so now that one's done. Let's do the buzzer. Come down here somewhere. Here it is. I'm going to add a range for the buzzer, and the buzzer was this toggle switch back here. We have to move our range so that it's in the highlighted area, and then of course this is a toggle, so it's going to snap back like that. And let's go ahead and save it. And now that it's saved, we can come up here, we can hide unused modes and just get the 4 that we're using and check it out. Armed, disarmed. This is an angle mode. And everything is working beautifully. All right, so essentially, if you come back, you probably remember that that's channel 1, that's channel 2, this is channel 3, this is channel 4. We created this. This is going to be on this. We created this on channel 5, which is aux1. This is going to be 6, which is 2, and this is going to be 7. So we've actually only used 7 of our 16 channels. So we've got a lot more things that we can do on this thing. But for now, we're just going to leave it at that. We could wrap things up right here, but I know there's a few of you out there that are saying, hey, wait a minute. What about outputs? What in the heck are outputs? Because if we go to long press on model and we page over, we got inputs, we got mixes, we got outputs. What in the heck are outputs? Well, that's a great question. And we're also going to use the receiver tab to configure our outputs or our endpoints. And check this out. It says that we want to configure our endpoints so on the TX so that the channels go from around 1,000 to 2,000, and we want to set the midpoint at 1,500. Now, that's predominantly for the first 4 for our stick movements. Okay, you can see roll's pretty good, pitch is pretty close, yaw is pretty close. Obviously the throttle is down at 987, but let's test our endpoints starting with roll. If we grab roll and we throw it all the way down, it says 987. If we throw it all the way in the other direction, it says 2011. Well, this wants it to be between 1,000 and 2,000. Okay, now real quick, will our quad fly right now? Yeah, it will. It will. We might have drift issues and stuff like that. Let's go ahead and set ourselves up for absolute 100% success. And the way we do that is the first thing I got to remember to do is let's center all of our channels. Trim center. Trim center. Trim center. Trim center. All right, so we've done that. we're good. And we've centered them all, and we're at 1500 for the first three and 987 for this one right here. So let's take a look at channel 1, which is roll. We flop him over here, we got 987. We flop him over there, we got 2011. So what we want to do is we're going to go to channel 1. I'm going to select to be in the edit of channel 1, and now I'm going to just move this over, and I'm going to move this one over, and I'm going to click on it. Okay, now I'm going to pull my roll over, and you can see I'm at 987. And if I move this over like this, you can see that number creeping up. 9, there's 1,000. And I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I get about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm just going to put it smack dab in the middle like that. All right. Now that's at 1,000. What happens? Now I'm going to go ahead and go boom like that. And then I'm going to move over like that. And then I'm going to go boom like that. And I'm going to push it to the other direction, 2011. And I want to bring this back. I want to bring it back to 2000. There's 2000. I got 1, 2, 3, right back there in the middle. Now I'm in the middle. Now I'm in the middle, and my 1500 looks good. So I can go ahead and say boom like that. All right. So now for my roll, I throw it. I'm 1,000. I throw it. I'm at 2,000. I let it go. I'm at 1,500. So I can go like that. Now I know that if I go to pitch, it's 2011 and 987. Look at my yaw. 987, 2011, and 2011, 987. So I can copy this for the other three channels to make it nice and easy. And it just did that. So now let's check this out. My roll, 2000, 1000. My pitch, 2000, 1000. My yaw, 1000, 2000. And my throttle, 1000, 2000. All right. Now, I do want to kind of go back and check my modes. Make sure that they're still good. There's my arm. My arm is still good. Let's just check this one. Angle mode. Horizon mode. Good. And my beeper. Okay, so everything still works perfectly. And I go like that, and I can come back to my receiver, and everything is set up so beautifully. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to hit save like so. That's outputs. Outputs essentially is the throw of the servo and making sure that your servo, I guess, is calibrated as well as possible. All right. All right, so I am way overdue for a stopping point in this video. I'm going to go ahead and cut things here. I really appreciate you sticking with me to the end. I hope you found value in the video. I hope you learned something. If you do, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you really like the video, hit that little bell so that you get notifications of future videos when they come out. In the next video in this series, we're going to do the final checklist, and we're going to get this thing up in the air. So thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.